Welcome the anointed ones. Checkmate isn't just the end of the game. It's the moment reality hits, the truth stands bare, and there's nowhere left to hide. Chosen ones, let's get real. Scoring a win is one thing, but delivering a checkmate with style that's ascending to a whole other level. Ever notice how in high-stakes situations the most crushing defeats aren't always about sheer force or overwhelming power? Truth is a massive chunk of those losses come from subtle traps, the kind the opponent never even saw coming. It's like life itself. Think about it. Over 70% of the time, it's the quiet, well-laid plans that crumble empires. That's exactly the story here. Stick with me because this is about to get good. Your adversaries thought they had time alternatives and an escape route until they didn't. And trust me, the word's out on the street. Everyone's buzzing about it, replaying the moment, because your victory wasn't just a triumph. It was art in motion. They didn't just lose. They lost with all eyes on them, feeling that spotlight. Yet, you transformed their grand strategy into a comedy show, and now their reputation is the punchline. The beauty of your checkmate is that it's set in stone. Once the king falls, there's no rewind button. You didn't just beat them, you left them immortalized in the archives of humiliation. And the best part, you probably didn't even break a sweat. This moment is far bigger than a mere win. Can you feel it resonating? It's a revelation, a turning point, and a scar that will remain on their legacy forever. So buckle up. Today we're going to break down exactly why this checkmate landed so hard, why it silenced the room, and why the elegance of your move has made you unforgettable. And yeah, we're going to touch on how they're probably still in their room, Googling how to recover from utter embarrassment. Let's dive in and see what we uncover. Spoiler alert, there's no tutorial for that. Number 1, you didn't just win the game, you redefined the board. That's what etches this moment into the books. Winning can be undone, explained away, or even minimized with excuses. People can say, oh, they got lucky, or the timing just happened to work in their favor. But what you did wasn't luck, and it wasn't timing. It was transformation. You shifted the entire structure they thought they were operating within. They believed they were the masters of the game, that they knew the rules, that they had the advantage, and then you revealed that the rules were never truly theirs to control the board. Does that feeling of power resonate with you? They thought they had mapped it out so carefully, but the game board belonged to you all along. That's why this victory stings them so deeply. They didn't just lose a battle. They lost the very framework of power they built their confidence upon. Someone who gets outplayed can train, study, and come back stronger. But when someone realizes they were playing on the wrong board, under false assumptions, with illusions of control, there's no training for that. Understand the implications now. It's not just defeat, it's exposure. It's realizing that every step they took was being watched, anticipated, and reworked into a bigger strategy. You didn't just survive their attacks, you turned their every move into part of your grand design. That's artistry, and that's why people can't stop talking about it. Ready for the next part? The best part is the permanence of it. Once the board is redefined, it can't be reversed. They can't suddenly say, well, actually, we were still in control. Everyone saw the shift, Everyone saw the moment the power dynamic flipped and the game became yours. That kind of revelation burns itself into people's memory. It becomes the story they repeat to others, how you didn't just beat them, you revealed the entire illusion they had built around themselves. What you did carries weight beyond the victory itself because it forces others to look at them differently. They're no longer seen as clever, powerful, or strategic. They're seen as amateurs who thought they understood the game only to be shown that the game itself was never theirs. That undoing of image, that stripping away of reputation, is something they can never repair. And you stand in the middle of it, not as someone who simply played well, but as someone who shifted the very nature of play itself. That's why your win isn't just celebrated, it's legendary. Feel that legend building. Number 2, they wanted your defeat to be public, but your victory became historic. That's the twist they never saw coming. Their entire plan rested on the idea that if enough eyes were watching, the embarrassment would crush you. They thought exposure would amplify your downfall, that people would remember you for failing, that your name would carry shame. What they forgot is that when the chosen are put under the spotlight, the light doesn't reveal weakness. It magnifies strength. Instead of a downfall, everyone saw the undeniable evidence of your resilience. And now the story has flipped completely against them. The power of public humiliation is that it's supposed to stick, but in your case it backfired spectacularly. Can you feel the energy shifting in your favor? They set the stage. They gathered the audience. They rolled out the narrative of your defeat. But in the middle of their performance, you rewrote the ending. The same crowd they wanted to laugh at you ended up applauding you. The same witnesses they wanted to use as proof of your failure are now testifying to your brilliance. That reversal is not something you can cover up or spin. It's etched into memory. And no amount of denial on their part will change what people saw with their own eyes. And the sting of that reversal runs deeper than you think. For them, failure behind closed doors would have been easier to hide, easier to explain away. But failing in public after loudly proclaiming your destruction, that's humiliation they can't outlive. Every time your name comes up, so does the memory of their failure. Every time people talk about what happened, the laughter isn't aimed at you. It's aimed at them. Have you ever felt the tables turn like that? They've become the running joke in their own story, and the punchline is that you came out stronger, sharper, and celebrated. That's what makes your victory historic. It isn't just about winning. It's about the fact that their plan backfired in such a dramatic way that it rewrote the narrative permanently. People won't forget how it unfolded because it wasn't ordinary. It was a turning point, a moment where everyone realized that no matter how carefully someone plots against you, they cannot dictate the outcome. They planned for your shame, but now the memory of that day has become their scar. And you, instead of carrying disgrace, carry proof that even in the face of public traps, you rise in a way that turns intended humiliation into timeless respect. It's time for the next level. Are you ready? Number 3, your style exposed their desperation. That's the part that people can't stop replaying in their minds. It wasn't just that you won. It was the way you carried yourself in the process. You didn't have to force anything. You didn't have to scream for attention. You didn't even have to prove yourself in the ways they demanded. You simply moved with precision and calm. And in contrast, their panic became obvious to everyone. Have you seen this play out in your life? Where you looked composed, they looked messy. Where you looked prepared, they looked frantic. And that contrast spoke louder than any words could have. Desperation has a way of leaking out. No matter how much someone tries to hide it, they were scrambling, cutting corners, exaggerating stories, bending the truth, and throwing everything at you just to get an edge. They wanted so badly to prove they were in control that they exposed how out of control they really were. People saw it. They noticed how their moves were inconsistent, how their strategies contradicted themselves, how their energy felt forced. And against that backdrop, your steadiness looked like genius. You didn't just win, you revealed their collapse in real time. The elegance of your style is what made their downfall so undeniable. A messy fight could have left room for excuses, but your poise left them with none. They can't say you cheated. They can't say you stumbled into victory. They can't even say you were lucky. Your approach made it clear that you were ahead of them the entire time, while they were too blinded by desperation to even see what was coming. Can you feel their desperation in contrast to your poise? And that's what cuts the deepest. They can't cover up the fact that they lost control of themselves while trying to control you. People remember victories, but they never forget when desperation is exposed. That's why your win has become such a talking point. It wasn't just the outcome, it was the process. It was the elegance of someone who didn't need to break a sweat while their opponent broke character. It was the grace of someone who didn't have to scream they were winning because the result made the statement for them. That's the kind of exposure that never fades. They weren't just defeated, they were revealed. And once desperation is revealed in front of everyone, it can't be erased. It sticks to them, while your style remains the proof of who truly held the power. It's time to leverage that power in the next section. Number 4. The silence after your move was louder than all their accusations. This wasn't the shallow idea of silence speaking louder that people throw around. It was a silence born out of shock, out of the collapse of every argument they had stacked against you. When you made that move, when the checkmate landed, the atmosphere itself shifted. All the noise, all the rumors, all the false narratives they had worked so hard to spread suddenly had no power left in them. Did you sense that shift? The air grew heavy because everyone in the room, everyone watching from the sidelines, realized there was nothing left to say. That kind of silence is devastating. It's not peaceful, it's not calm. It's the silence of recognition, the silence that comes when truth shows up and wipes out all the chatter. Their supporters, their defenders, their allies couldn't find a single word to soften the blow. No explanation could patch what had just happened. People who were quick to accuse you, quick to mock you, quick to join the noise were suddenly staring down the reality that your victory was undeniable. And in that moment, their accusations aged like spoiled milk. They turned sour, instantly exposed as baseless, hollow, and weak. What makes that silence even more powerful is that it wasn't forced. You didn't have to demand it. You didn't shout anyone down or beg to be heard. Do you feel that authority radiating from you? The move itself commanded it. That's the kind of authority they can never imitate. Anyone can talk. Anyone can point fingers, but very few can make a room fall quiet without uttering a single word. You didn't silence them, your victory did. And that's what gives it lasting weight. The memory of that silence will haunt them. Every time they try to bring your name up again, people will remember how quickly their last round of accusations collapsed. Every time they think of plotting against you, that heavy pause will come back to them, reminding them that their words carry no power when your actions stand as proof. Silence like that can't be spun, can't be denied, can't be erased. Do you understand the weight of your actions now? It lingers, it spreads. It reshapes how people view both you and them. That's why your checkmate will never be forgotten. It wasn't just the win. It was the way the entire room, the entire circle, the entire community had to shut down and acknowledge what they had been fighting so hard to deny. Your move didn't just silence them, it buried their narrative for good. Time to understand exactly how deep this victory cuts. Number 5, you made them realize they were playing checkers on your chessboard. That's why the sting of this defeat is so sharp. It wasn't just about losing, it was about being revealed as amateurs in a game far too complex for them. They thought they had mastered the board. They believed their tricks, their shortcuts, and their basic moves were enough to corner you. But while they were focused on jumping over pieces and claiming quick wins, you were calculating layers ahead, weaving a strategy that they couldn't even comprehend. Understand the difference in vision. They weren't just outplayed, they were exposed for being out of their depth from the very beginning. What makes this moment powerful is that it pulled back the curtain on the illusion they carried. They had convinced themselves, and maybe even others, that they were smart, strategic, and untouchable. But when the game unfolded, it became clear that their so-called mastery was nothing more than a cheap performance. They didn't lose because you blocked them once. They lost because the very level of the game they were playing didn't measure up to yours. Checkers can be loud, fast, and flashy, but chess is precise, layered, and patient. You embodied the patience, the foresight, and the discipline they could never imitate. Are you ready to showcase that level of play? That's why your victory isn't just about you being better. It's about showing everyone the gap between you and them. People watching saw it. They noticed how their moves looked shallow next to your depth, how their attempts at control crumbled under the weight of your long game. That realization can't be undone. Once someone sees the difference between checkers and chess, they can never pretend the games are equal again. You elevated the standard in a way that made their efforts look small and laughable. The humiliation runs deeper because they can't step up to your level even if they wanted to. Mastery of chess takes vision, patience, and inner stability, qualities you've sharpened through endurance, struggle, and growth. They, on the other hand, only know how to chase quick wins and instant gratification. That's why this checkmate has such permanence. It didn't just prove you won. It proved they were never contenders in the first place. And now wherever your name is mentioned, theirs will be remembered as the ones who brought checkers to a chess match and got dismantled with style. Next up, we cement the legacy. Number 6. Your win created a permanent record that history will reference. This wasn't the kind of victory that fades with time or gets lost in the noise of everyday life. Some wins are small, temporary, and easy to forget. People might clap for a moment and then move on, but what you did carved itself into memory like an engraving that cannot be scratched out. It's a watermark now, subtle, undeniable, and forever tied to your name. No matter how much time passes, people will point back to this moment as the example of what true triumph looks like. Does that feeling of permanence resonate with you? That's what separates your checkmate from ordinary wins. Ordinary victories depend on circumstances, on timing, on the audience. They might even be questioned or dismissed later. But your win was too sharp, too undeniable, and too poetic to be erased. Everyone saw it, everyone felt it, and most importantly, everyone knew there was no undoing it. That's why years from now, when stories are told, this moment will be the benchmark. People will use it as a reference point. That was the day everything changed. The permanence of it also comes from the way it flipped the narrative. You weren't just defending yourself, you weren't just surviving an attack. You set a standard. You showed how someone chosen wins, not by scrambling, not by luck, but with patience, vision, and style. This is a legacy in motion. That story doesn't just fade because it speaks to something universal. It's about justice, about exposure, about truth rising to the top. No matter how many lies are stacked against it, those themes resonate beyond you, which is why the record will carry forward. For them, the shame will last just as long. Are you ready for the next chapter of your legendary status? That's the double edge of a permanent record. Your victory is their scar. Every time someone remembers how brilliantly you won, they also remember how miserably the opposition lost. They will forever be the backdrop to your triumph, the cautionary tale people whisper about when warning others not to come against someone chosen. That's why it cannot be erased, because it doesn't just exist in your life. It exists in the collective memory of everyone who witnessed it. This wasn't just a win. It was history being written in real time, a legacy moment that will be cited, repeated, and celebrated long after the dust has settled. And the most powerful part, that record doesn't just belong to history, it belongs to you. It's time to use their failure to protect your future. Number 7, they became the example of how not to come against a chosen one. That's the weight of your checkmate. It didn't just end their little game. It turned them into a story that gets told as a warning. Their downfall has now become the blueprint of what happens when arrogance collides with divine strategy. People don't even need to exaggerate the story, because the truth alone is humiliating enough. Their names are no longer spoken with admiration, but with mockery, with side comments, and with the kind of quiet laughter that follows someone who played themselves in full view of the crowd. That's the brutal part of it all. It's not just that they lost, it's that their loss became instructional. Now, when others feel tempted to plot against you, they don't just think twice. They think about them. They think about how bold they were, how loud they were, how sure they were, and how quickly they collapsed when faced with you. Their example is now burned into memory, almost like a proverb: don't try what they tried. Does that understanding of their failure embolden you? That kind of legacy isn't one anyone wants, but it's the one they can't escape. This is what happens when someone mistakes noise for power. They thought their schemes, their alliances, and their confidence were enough to bury you. What they didn't realize is that coming against someone chosen is never a fair fight. It's not just human strategy they were up against. It was divine backing, resilience forged through trials, and vision sharpened by struggle. And when you carry that kind of foundation, no opposition stands a chance. They didn't just miscalculate you. They underestimated the source behind you. That mistake cost them everything. You ready to leverage this protective force? And here's the part that stings them the most. Their loss benefits you twice, once because you came out victorious, twice because their failure now works as a shield for you going forward. People who once doubted your strength now see the evidence for themselves. People who once might have been bold enough to test you now hesitate, remembering how quickly others fell. That hesitation is your invisible protection. You don't even have to defend yourself anymore. Their story does it for you. So yes, your checkmate was a win, but it was more than that. It was a lesson carved into history, using them as the cautionary tale. They thought they were writing your downfall, but all they wrote was a warning label with their own names on it. They didn't just lose. They broke from the inside out. Number 8, you didn't just break their strategy, you broke their spirit. That's the part that leaves the deepest scar, because strategies can always be rebuilt, plans can be reworked, alliances can be reshaped, and new tactics can be drawn up. But when someone's spirit cracks under the weight of humiliation, there's no blueprint that can fix that. It becomes part of them, a permanent fracture that they can't shake no matter how much they pretend. That's the power of the way you won. It didn't just dismantle what they were doing, it dismantled who they believed themselves to be. Their entire identity was wrapped around the idea that they could outsmart you, overpower you, and put you in your place. They thought they had the upper hand. They thought they had the audience, and they thought they had the perfect plan. But when all of that fell apart in front of everyone, something inside of them collapsed too. You didn't just beat them. You forced them to confront the reality that they were never on your level. That realization is heavier than any loss because it doesn't fade once the game ends. It lingers in the mind, replaying itself over and over, reminding them of the moment they were exposed. Humiliation like that leaves people haunted. You didn't just win. You broke something deep within them. They may smile on the outside, but on the inside they carry the sting of knowing they can never reclaim the image they once projected. Every time they try to rebuild, that memory whispers, "You failed when it mattered most." And that whisper isn't just internal, it comes from others too. People who witnessed what happened don't look at them the same way anymore. Respect was stripped from them, and once that kind of respect is gone, it doesn't return. That's why your victory is irreversible. It wasn't just about proving you could win. It was about shattering the illusion they lived in. They can draw up 1,000 new strategies, but they'll never enter the fight with the same confidence because they know deep down that their spirit cracked when they faced you. And the truth is, once a crack like that appears, it never really heals. It just stays there as proof of your dominance. a silent reminder that the day they came against you was the day they lost something far more valuable than a strategy. They lost themselves. It's their trap that caused this downfall. Number 9, their obsession to defeat you turned into their own trap. That's the irony they'll never be able to live down. Every single move they made was designed to corner you, to strip away your options, to suffocate you into submission. But instead of trapping you, all they really did was walk themselves step by step into their own destruction. That's the danger of obsession. It blinds people. They became so fixated on watching your every move that they couldn't see how their own actions were lining up against them. They were certain they were building your cage, but in reality they were tightening the noose around their own necks. This is what separates you from them. Patience. Can you feel how your patience empowered you? They wanted an immediate victory. They wanted to see you fall quickly so they could celebrate loudly. You, on the other hand, understood the power of waiting. You let them believe they were winning. You let them grow arrogant in their plotting. And you let them push further and further until the weight of their own schemes crushed them. You didn't have to do much except stand steady while their desperation built the very trap they thought they were setting for you. That's the brilliance of your checkmate. It wasn't forced, it was inevitable. And here's what makes it even more brutal: because they engineered their own downfall, they have no one else to blame. They can't point fingers at you and say you tricked them, because everyone can see the truth. They chose every move themselves. They set every piece into place. They convinced themselves that their obsession was strategy when really it was self-sabotage disguised as ambition. That kind of failure cuts deeper than any loss someone hands you. It's the shame of realizing you destroyed yourself trying to destroy someone else. That's why this moment can't be undone. The story isn't just that you won, it's that they lost by their own design. And that's what haunts them most, because they know the outcome would have been different if they had simply left you alone. Is the taste of victory getting sweeter? Their obsession blinded them, and now that blindness has become their permanent reputation. People will always remember how their desire to trap you ended up making them the trapped ones. You didn't just survive their schemes, you turned their obsession into the very rope that tied them down. What you did was truly beautiful because it was so incredibly brutal. Number 10, your win carried beauty because it was unforgivable. There are some defeats people can bounce back from, losses they can frame as lessons, setbacks they can spin into redemption stories. But what happened here left no room for that. It wasn't the kind of loss that can be brushed off with, "I'll do better next time." It was absolute, final, and witnessed in a way that stripped them of every excuse. The beauty of your victory is that it didn't just end the game. It ended the illusion of who they pretended to be. Are you starting to understand the weight of your success here? And once that mask shattered in public, there was no putting it back together. That's what makes this win stand out. It wasn't just the fact that you defeated them. It's how thoroughly you did it. There's no debating what happened. There's no twisting the story into something else. Everyone saw it. Everyone felt the shift in the moment. And because it was undeniable, it became unforgettable. Their reputation didn't just take a hit, It collapsed under the weight of humiliation that can't be undone. Forgivable defeats happen in private or in ways that leave room for interpretation, but your checkmate left them naked before the crowd, and humiliation like that doesn't wash off. It's a beauty you could never have predicted. The permanence of it is what cuts the deepest. They don't get a redemption arc because they wrote themselves out of the story when they underestimated you. They wanted to bury you, but instead they buried their own credibility. That's why your victory is unforgivable, not because you wronged them, but because they wronged themselves by setting the stage for a defeat so absolute. You simply delivered the truth. And the truth was brutal. Now every attempt they make to rebuild their name will be measured against that moment, and the memory will always overshadow their efforts. The beauty lies in the finality. Is it starting to taste truly beautiful? You didn't just win. You made losing to you irreversible. It's a rare kind of victory that doesn't just declare you the stronger one, but permanently seals their place as the weaker one. Their humiliation became historic not because of exaggeration, but because of timing, truth, and visibility. And now the story isn't about whether you triumphed. It's about how they will never escape the shadow of their own undoing. And it just completely ended what role they were playing. Number 11, you didn't just end the game, you ended their role in it. That's the kind of defeat that carries a weight far heavier than a simple loss. Some people can take a fall, regroup, and come back to the table with fresh energy. They can lose a round and still be considered competitors. But what you did stripped them of that privilege entirely. After your checkmate, they weren't just beaten, they were erased from the game itself. The board no longer recognizes them, and the players who once sat alongside them no longer see them as equals. This is the irreversible mark of your victory. What makes this so devastating is that they didn't just lose their position. They lost their credibility. A true competitor can lose honorably and still command respect, but the way you dismantled them left no dignity behind. Their schemes, their arrogance, their attempts to posture as someone capable of defeating you, all of it crumbled in plain sight. And now, when people think of them, they don't see a strategist or a fighter. They see someone who is completely dismantled, someone who proved unworthy of even sitting at the table in the first place. This is the kind of ending that steals futures. Even if they tried to re-enter the game, no one would take them seriously. You have completely ended what they tried to build. Are you understanding this? Their past actions, their humiliating defeat, and the memory of how thoroughly you exposed them will always overshadow any attempt at a comeback. It's not just that they lost, it's that their loss stripped away the very right to try again. They didn't just fail in competition, they failed in character, and that's a disqualification that sticks forever. And here's the brilliance of it: you didn't have to chase them away. You didn't have to force anyone to disregard them. The board itself rejected them. The audience saw the collapse. The other players saw the gap, and now no one sees them as part of the equation anymore. What you did was a true thing of beauty. Ooh, that's what makes your win more than just victory. It redefined the game so completely that their name doesn't even belong in the conversation. That's why this checkmate will always carry weight. You didn't just secure your position, you removed theirs entirely. The beauty of it is that you didn't just defeat them, you wrote them out of the story, and from this point forward, history won't remember them as competitors. Is it starting to feel like you own the game now? It will only remember you as the one who ended their role for good. But it wasn't just that you ended what role they had in the game, but also what was left behind in the aftermath. Number 12. The aftermath made the victory bigger than the game. That's what separates your checkmate from ordinary wins. It outgrew the boundaries of the competition itself. People aren't even focused on who moved what piece, who started which fight, or what the original conflict was about. That's all background noise now. What they talk about, what they replay, what they can't get out of their minds is the way you ended it, the elegance of your move, the sharpness of your execution, the artistry in the way you closed the chapter. You transformed a clash into a masterpiece, and that's why the story is already moved from victory to legend. It's one thing to win, but it's another thing entirely to do it in a way that captures attention long after the dust settles. Do you feel the world looking at you? The game is supposed to end when the final move is made, but yours created echoes that refuse to die down. People admire not just that you overcame, but how you overcame with precision, with calm, with style that left no room for debate. And because of that, the conversation is no longer about the details of the battle. It's about the moment itself, the unforgettable clothes that stamped your dominance in a way no one can deny. This is why your win has permanence. Ordinary victories get replaced by the next news cycle, the next fight, the next distraction. But when a win carries beauty, people keep telling the story. They retell it not because of the score, but because of how it made them feel. That's what you achieved. You turned your checkmate into a reference point, the kind of moment people use to define what it looks like when someone not only triumphs, but triumphs with grace and brilliance. Is your success starting to inspire others? And here's the twist. The aftermath is now larger than the game ever was. What was meant to be a simple contest of wills has become a narrative of legacy. Your name is tied to elegance, to sharpness, to artistry, while theirs is tied to collapse and exposure. Long after people forget the smaller details, they will remember the weight of that ending, and that's how a battle becomes more than a fight. It becomes a story worth retelling, a legend that outlives the game itself. The win wasn't just in the game, but in what they came to respect because of that. Number 13, your win forced them to respect what they tried to mock. That's the cruel irony of your checkmate. The very traits they dismissed as weakness became the exact weapons that dismantled them. They laughed at your patience as if waiting with intention was foolish. They ridiculed your discipline, mistaking it for rigidity. They rolled their eyes at your vision, calling it unrealistic, naive, or too different to ever work. Yet when the dust settled, those same qualities became the pillars of your triumph. And now they're forced to acknowledge the very things they once tried to belittle. Does it sting them to respect you now? This is the kind of victory that stings the deepest because it doesn't just prove you right, it proves them wrong in the most humiliating way possible. It's easy to lose to someone with the same tools or the same tactics, but to be outdone by the exact qualities they mocked, that's a wound that doesn't heal. Every sneer, every whispered insult, every moment they felt superior is now a reminder of how short-sighted and blind they were. They weren't just defeated. They were exposed as people who couldn't recognize power even when it stood right in front of them. How's that feel to turn their insults to respect? What makes this unforgettable is that your victory rewired the way they see you. They can't reduce you to a joke anymore. They can't casually dismiss what you stand for because your win forced them to confront its effectiveness. And here's the kicker: they now have to live with the fact that they have no choice but to respect what they used to despise. That's the shift that burns the most, being forced into respect when all they wanted to do was belittle. And yet this isn't just about them. It's about everyone watching. People who once bought into their mockery are now questioning their own judgment. The crowd sees clearly that what they called weakness was actually strength in disguise. Have you ever seen respect rewired into someone's life, and now your story becomes a lesson, a warning, a reminder that ridicule often comes from those too blind to recognize greatness until it's too late? That's why this checkmate is irreversible. You didn't just silence their voices, you rewrote the entire narrative. They can't laugh at patience anymore because patience beat them. They can't mock discipline anymore because discipline crushed them. They can't dismiss vision anymore because vision outlasted them. Your win left them with no choice but to respect what they once mocked, and that's the kind of respect that tastes like defeat every time they remember it. You didn't just win, it's become an event for them too. Number 14. You didn't just win. You made losing to you an unforgettable event. That's the difference between a victory and a legacy. Victories are counted, tallied, and eventually forgotten as time rolls on. But when you defeated them, you didn't just collect another win. You created a moment that tattooed itself into memory. Their loss became more than just a setback. It became a permanent story attached to their name, a scar that speaks louder than any excuse they could ever attempt to make. This is the weight of your checkmate. People lose games, battles, and arguments every day, but very few losses echo. Most defeats fade into the background because they're expected or because the loser can redeem themselves later. But what happened here was different. You stripped them of redemption. You didn't just corner them, you closed every possible exit, leaving them with no way to rewrite the narrative. Their downfall wasn't quiet, it wasn't private, and it wasn't something they could bury under time. It became unforgettable because it revealed something about them and something about you at the same time. What it showed was something for the ages. They were unprepared and you were undeniable. That's what makes this defeat historic. They didn't just lose to skill, they lost to inevitability. The way you orchestrated your win, the calm precision, the clarity of vision, and the elegance in execution turned their humiliation into a timeless reminder. It's been an event they won't soon forget. Now, whenever people reference true mastery, your victory will stand as an example, and whenever they reference failure, their names will hover in the air like a warning label. What cuts the deepest is that this wasn't just a battle lost. It was a legacy altered. They can no longer step into any space without people remembering that moment, the one where they thought they had the upper hand only to collapse in plain sight. Your win redefined their identity not as a worthy opponent, but as the unforgettable cautionary tale of what happens when arrogance collides with precision. That's why losing to you became more than defeat. It became history, and history doesn't erase itself. Have you ever felt what your actions created now? They'll move on, try to rebuild, maybe even pretend it never happened, but the record stands. People remember whispers carry, and long after they've tried to reshape their image, your checkmate will still live as the moment that made their loss unforgettable. It wasn't just your victory, it was the creation of a legend stamped into their failure. It's an event in the books that they will never live down. What this all comes down to is simple yet devastatingly powerful. Your checkmate wasn't just about ending a game, it was about shifting the balance of perception forever. You didn't just prove yourself right. You rewrote the narrative, closed the debate, and cemented a truth that cannot be, cannot be, cannot be, cannot be, cannot be, cannot be.